Hey guys, I am back and today I am going to be doing my third update to my book roulette series. If you're new here, I'm trying to do the 50 book challenge. I found a version of this, like a list of 50 prompts off of Pinterest. I put them into a spreadsheet. All of that stuff will be linked down below, along with the playlist of my intro, first, and second updates. So now that we've gotten all of that out of the way, if you are new here and you like reading, please get caught up. I have read a lot of books so far. I think I've read almost 20. And that is more than I have read since I was a child and had a lot of free time. So this has been really fun and I'm really enjoying filling the prompts. I'm doing this roulette style, so I'm picking prompts to focus on. But if I read books that don't fill those prompts for whatever reason, they still count. I don't have to read them in the order because I would have a very hard time doing that. Also, as I've been saying 400 times so far this year, I'm moving. So I have been focusing mainly on physical books because I want to try and sort through, decide what I'm keeping and donating so that I can move less crap with me. So this is almost all physical books this month. And then I have 2 books that I rented through the library. Some months are more library books and less physical books. So now that I've gotten all of that talking out of the way, let's jump straight into this video. So I read 9 books this past month. I'm including 2 audiobooks, so I read/listened to 9 books this month, and I filled 3 of the 5 prompts that I had selected. So the 5 prompts that I was working off of as my roulette prompts were a book from your childhood, a graphic novel, a book by an author you've never read before, a book you own but have never read, and a play. You would think that that last one would be easy to fill, but I don't know why I keep not wanting to put books in that category because they fit a different category better, or I'm borrowing the book from a friend, so then I technically don't own it. So that's kind of why I've been having a hard time fulfilling that prompt, but I will probably in the upcoming month. So the books that I'm just going to go in order that I read them. So the first book I read this month was Half of a Yellow Sun by Chimamanda Adichie. This is one of my favorite authors. This is set in the Nigerian Civil War when Biafra and Nigeria were fighting, and it is from the perspective of people in Biafra, which is the part of Nigeria that was fighting for independence. It focuses kind of on 5 people. So a couple, they're they call him a houseboy. I read more of her work in this, and I've read more Nigerian literature, and it seems like this is kind of a common thing. It's kind of similar to a maid. It's kind of a live-in maid/cook. And then the couple, the female in the couple, the wife partner, her sister and her sister's partner. So it's those kind of 5 people and how all of their lives are very differently affected by this war and how they feel about it and each other. And it's a really beautiful book. And I used this to fill the category, a book set in a different country. And this is just truly such a special book. I really, really love it. Then the next book I read was this graphic novel. It is Guardians of the Galaxy Legacy. This was actually a Christmas gift, and I used it for the prompt, a graphic novel. This was interesting. The characters are very different than they portray the characters in the Guardians of the Galaxy movie, but this is clearly some sort of spin-off in an alternate dimension because they have someone who has the Captain America shield who's not Captain America, and he does not refer to himself as Captain America, and they have some different characters. So they have Gamora, no, that's not Gamora, Gamora, Quill, Rocket, and Drax, but these 2 are new, so it's interesting. I thought it was fun reading a graphic novel. I get I feel like I never know where to look, so I'm not really sure that I would ever really read a ton of them, but they're fun. Then the next book I read was Beach Read by Emily Henry, which I used for a book that made you cry, I feel like, which is funny because the other Emily Henry book I read, I used for a funny book, And I think both are funny, but this book definitely like pulled on my heartstrings. I felt very connected with the characters, and it's just a very beautiful story. It's a romance book, enemies to lovers, lots of great, very fun tropes, but it's about authors, which I thought was really like a fun twist, and I really liked it. I'm very excited to read the rest of Emily Henry's books because she's great. So that was really fun. The next book I read, I didn't know what category to put it in. I had seen this book a lot on, like, I'm not on TikTok, but like Book Talk that's on Instagram, like Instagram Reels and stuff. People were hyping this up, and me and my friends didn't like it, and then we went and read some of the actual reviews, and it has a lot of good reviews, but it also has a lot of bad reviews, and the bad reviews are kind of scathing. This is Twisted Love by Anna Huang. My friend read the second one in this series and liked it more. This book is definitely like a step above most of the romance novels we read, my friends and I read. I would potentially describe this book as a little bit toxic, and some people really love that, and I'm totally down for it. But yeah, this book is interesting. It was like kind of fun, but so like if you liked like 50 Shades of Grey and those movies, you would probably like this. It's similar themes. The love interest is very possessive, and that's what turned me off. I did not like that possessiveness. I think that's just a matter of taste, so take my opinion with a grain of salt. But because the reviews against this book were kind of mean, and there was a good amount of them, I put this for a book with bad reviews because A, I didn't love it. B, it does have bad reviews. And C, I really didn't want to like order a book that had like 2 stars on Amazon and like force myself to read it. That just didn't sound fun. Then the next book I read was Gingerbread by Rachel Cohn. I also was not a good fan of this book. I kind of had 2 duds in a row, which was too bad. And then this book is I used for a book set in high school. Yes, a book set in high school. There's a couple ways that books will write teenagers. As a person who's in college, like, I'm still like kind of a teenager. I'm also not a teenager anymore. So I know that like people who maybe are a little bit older than me might disagree with this, but I feel like there's like 3 different ways that teenagers are represented in novels, especially books about teenagers that are written by adults. They're either written kind of just as a teenager, like someone who really understands teenagers really well, they work with them, or they were very recently a teenager, or they kept a lot of journals, whatever. They write them pretty well. 2, writing them as kind of dumb adults. So it's like they're an adult, they can do a lot of adult things, they just make bad decisions sometimes. That I find palatable. Sometimes I think it's taken a step too far. Like, teenagers are dumb, but some of us aren't that dumb. I was dumb. I'm saying I was dumb, but I feel like I read books where I'm like, do you really think teenagers talk like this? Anyways. And then there's this way, which is writing a teenager as like an angsty child. So they have a very childlike way of interacting with the world, a very childlike way of like problem solving, or just not problem solving, but they just go out of their way to cause problems. They are just angsty and angry, and they like don't care about anyone else. They have no respect for their elders, etc., etc. And so that was how this was written. I was just really not a fan of it. It also says pretty edgy on the front, and it's definitely, I don't know if edgy's the way I would describe it. I don't know. This book also came out in 2015, and I feel like feminism and the way that we represent young women has changed a lot, or like the way that we talk about it has changed a little bit since 2015, like since like the girl boss era. And so maybe that's just what this is. I was just not a fan. Maybe there's a reason why the author wrote it this way that I just don't know. Like if there was an author's note, I didn't read it, or like an afterword. I think there was like, yeah. I don't think there was an afterword. Anyways, I didn't read it. Sometimes authors will explain why they've made certain choices, and I think that that can help me appreciate the book. This just wasn't my favorite, but it was pretty short read, and it was kind of an interesting story. So, yep, done with that one. Next, the next audiobook that I listened to was Forever Interrupted by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is a popular author's first book. So I read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, loved it, really want to read Daisy Jones and the Six. And so I looked up what her first book was, and it was Forever Interrupted, which is a really sad story that stays sad for a really long time and then gets better at the end. And I listened to it as an audiobook, so I feel like I didn't get as connected with the characters as I would have if I was reading. I tend to like cry while reading books, but not necessarily while listening to audiobooks or listening to podcasts. So that might have been it. But it was pretty good. I think the author did a good job of portraying the 7 stages of grief, because it kind of starts with a very traumatic beginning and then kind of follows after the tragedy, while flashing back to how the couple met. So it's like really, really sad. Ooh, yay, first date. Really, really sad. Oh, he's so cute. We're going to go on a second date. Really, really sad. So it's an interesting juxtaposition, but I do really like the book and I would recommend it. And one of my friends is reading The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and I would recommend this to her afterwards, just because we have similar tastes. Then the next book I read was The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. I used this to fill a book from an author that I've never read before. I had never read Ali Hazelwood. This one I thought was funny because, first of all, Ali Hazelwood has a PhD. She has been in academia. That's why most of her books are centered around academia. Being a person in STEM myself, I found that really nice because she uses technical language. She has an understanding of how academia and school and STEM works, which I really appreciate. And this character, like, the main character's kind of she's not good at like thinking on her feet, and that's what gets her into this scenario. It's a fake dating book. It's really, really cute. The character, when I first started reading it, I was like, this girl is dumb, like D-U-M, dumb. And then as it goes on, she grows on you and you just want what's best for her. And she's really sweet. And I feel like a lot of romance novels, the way that the story is driven is through kind of isolation of the character, and then they have to like meet resolution with the love interest because they really don't have much else going on in their life, which is sad. But things that come to mind are like Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. She doesn't really have any other friends. She's doing school and work, so she doesn't really have much free time to practice a hobby. So really her only outside of school and work thing that she does is the love interest. And that makes me sad. Sometimes it makes me sad that there are people who don't necessarily like have other outlets of support outside of a romantic partner, just because I'm in a stage in my life where my friends are very important to me. I know that changes as we age, but this book doesn't do that. She has a really good, strong friend network. And as a person who is in school, it made me happy that this person who is in school in the book had that network. Her friends are really great. The love interest is very respectful. I would say this is kind of the opposite of this book as far as like dynamics go. And it's cute, but you will be yelling, "Oh my God, Olive, you're stupid" at the book if you, like me, get too invested. Then the next book I listened to was A Wrinkle in Time by Madeleine L'Engle. This is to fill a book from your childhood. I purposely sought this book out because I remember being like a book that I really got into, and I read almost all of Madeleine L'Engle's work when I read this book because I just thought it was such a wonderful story. I never watched the movie, but I wanted to revisit this book with this prompt, and let me tell you, I still think that this book is like one of the greatest children's books of all time. It is so good. It touches on a lot of themes of uniformity and being an individual. It's kind of a coming of age without being super, but it has this like science fiction but also fantasy element to it. It had a really hard time getting published. I listened to the afterword written by Madeleine L'Engle's granddaughter, and I guess it had a really hard time getting published because it didn't fit into any traditional genres. It's like kind of science fiction, and I think that's how it's shelved, but it's young adult science fiction, but adults can enjoy it. It does discuss some theology. It quotes famous philosophers and theologians, so it definitely has kind of a spiritual slight element to it with the science fiction, with the fantasy elements. I mean, I think the book considers itself science fiction, but listening to the worlds it describes on these other planets feels very like Lord of the Rings-esque. It's a great book. If you have never read it, I would highly, highly, highly recommend it, no matter what age you are, or if you're looking for a really insightful book to give to a younger person in your life, especially someone who's in like late middle school or like high school. I think that this is a great book to read. It really makes you think about like what it means to be an individual and what uniformity does to society and things like that. It's a fantastic book. And the last book I read was Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. I borrowed this from a friend who had just read it, and I thought that this was unique to her work because most of the books, her characters do things and I don't really understand the motives behind them. Like they make decisions and I'm like, why? And I feel like this book was very fleshed out. It's a very high drama situation. There's unfortunately a death of a dear loved one of many people in this book. And those people all react very differently to it, but their choices make sense in the context of what has happened and in the context of their interactions with one another. And so as they move towards a resolution, it feels kind of organic. It doesn't feel forced. At the end, I felt like the resolution was a little bit like too easy, but people don't read fluffy romance novels for the like difficult resolutions. They read them for the like happy endings. So I thought this was a really thoughtful book. It's one of the ones by Colleen Hoover that I feel like I appreciated the most. And yeah, I thought it was good. And I used this to fill the prompt, a book from an author you love, but you haven't read yet. So those were my 9 books that I read this month. And I am going to roulette 3 prompts. So a book from your childhood, a graphic novel, and a book by an author you've never read before. So I'm going to pull out my graphing calculator, and it's probability, random integer, between 2 and 51. And I'm going to generate 9 numbers and go in order because I've read like almost half the prompts at this point, and I don't want to just keep generating new prompts. I don't have the energy. Okay, so the first one is 2, which is a classic romance. Loving this journey for me. Then we'll have 7. Oh wait, sorry, I lied. 2 is a book with more than 500 pages. That's good. 7 is a book written by someone under 30. I've already read that, so I'm going, and I read Homegoing by Yagasi. So the next one is 41, which is a book that's more than 100 years old. That'll be interesting. I think I might read like Pride and Prejudice or something like that I haven't read yet. Then we have 20. Which is a book that takes place in your hometown. There was a Press Democrat article about books that were written in from my area, or like they're set in my area, so I'll pick one of those. And And I think those are my 3 new ones. So now my 5 prompts are a book with more than 500 pages, a book that takes place in your hometown, a book you own but I've never read, a book more than 100 years old, and a play. So actually I'm gonna get rid of a play because I have no interest in reading it, and I've already done this where I like got rid of it and pulled a new one. So we're just gonna do it again. So that'll be 20 was book in your hometown, 27 is a book from your childhood, 26 is a book that's part of a trilogy, I already read that, 47 is a book written by an author with the same initials as you. Let's do that one. That sounds interesting. Okay, so that'll be my new 5th prompt because I don't know. I don't have any desire to read a play right now. I don't know why. I'll do it later. So that is everything for today's video. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for hanging out. If you have any more questions about the synopses or my thoughts on any of the books that I've read so far, let me know. If you have any recommendations, let me know. And other than that, I hope you are having an incredible, awesome day wherever you are, and that I get to see you in a future video. Thanks, guys.